police officers withhold information about human rights during traffic violations, and it is our job to learn them prior to being in trouble with the law. And like, how many of you guys have been pulled over by a police officer and they always ask you questions not regarding to the ticket in question?
Yeah.
Okay, so what people don't know is that when you get pulled over, you don't have to answer any questions outside the original jurisdiction that the police pulled you over for. Like, for example, I have an example from the Business Network, and it was an article that said a police officer made a routine traffic stop of a vehicle about a cracked windshield, and after asking for the driver's license and registration, he then asked the driver if he had illegal narcotics in the car, and of course he said no, and so the cop asked for consent to go to search his car, and he said yes. And then he ended up finding narcotics in the car. And so during the prosecution, the defendant argued that his consent was tainted by the officer's question about illegal narcotics because it was outside the scope of the original jurisdiction, which was the cracked windshield. And the defendant claimed that the officer violated his Fourth Amendment and rights because it was illegal. It was unreasonable search, so the court agreed and ruled the consent was invalid and the evidence was suppressed. And also, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration website, a review of arrest reports revealed that 64% of all arrests made by traffic personnel, 36% were non-warrant arrests, which means that some people who were stopped just on a regular traffic violation ended up being arrested for other reasons. And third, on the MirandaRights.com, they stated that you cannot be arrested simply for refusing to answer any questions from an officer. And basically, the only questions they can ask you is for your registration, your insurance, and your license. And any other information, you can only answer questions that are regarding to your ticket. And so remember that you can either say your lawyer advised you not to answer any questions, or you can just say, sorry sir, but what does this have to do with my violations in question. And then last, I have a quote from Dave LaEsperance. He's the chief of Massachusetts Police Department. And he stated that if we find something like a gun or a marijuana butt in the ashtray, we could put the person into custody, or we can handcuff them and do any inventory search where we search the full car before it's towed. And in most cases, that's where we find drugs or contraband, and that's where most charges are filed. But if it's not in plain view, if they just can't sit outside your window and see it in plain view, then they have no right to search your car. And so, what they don't tell you is that the Miranda rights still apply when you get pulled over. They just don't have to say it unless you're being arrested. So I just want everyone to know just to know your rights and do your research, and that's why I believe police officers withhold information about human rights during traffic violations, and it's our job to learn about the law.